Okay, so in the next part, let's talk a little bit about the migration filters. So we've seen how we can migrate a project in the data mode and also in the resume mode. And now we can make also filters set up when we try to run a migration. So filters are very useful. For example, they will help you to migrate only a specific set of entities. So you can avoid migrating all of the project if you'd like. And the filters are very important when you're trying to understand your project in QC and trying not to synchronize everything inside Octane. For example, if you have very old defects or very old manual tests or out-of-date tests and you don't want to synchronize them, to migrate them, then you can use those filters. So basically, the filter setup is very basic. It will be done in the command line. So after the original parameter that we need there, we also have those parameters, which represents the filter for each entity type. So, for example, we have the requirement folder query. So if this filter is set to none, then no requirement folders will be migrated. As well as for the requirement documents, for tests, for manual tests, for test sets, for manual test runs, and for defects. So if the parameter is set to none, then none of the relevant entity will be migrated. Okay, there is also the option to filter the releases migration, but this can be done inside the configuration file, and I will share with you our user guide for this. So we just have to set up those parameters, and then the migration tool will migrate only the releases inside the start and end date range. So actually it will migrate the releases based on the minimum start date and maximum start date that we set up in this range, and only then only those releases will be migrated. Okay, now moving on to the other entities filters. Okay, we can do another migration with a filter just to show up exactly how these filters work. And also all of the filters for each entity, for defect, for tests, for test sets, manual test runs, and requirements. All of the filters are done based on a field. So basically you can create any filter for any entity type based on any field. You just need the name of the field and the value. So for example, we have here some examples of queries. We can see that if we set this query to defect query ID equals to 90, then the migration tool will migrate only the defect with the ID 90. Also, we can set up a filter for test runs to migrate only the runs that are passed. Also, we can set up a range of test sets, for example, from based on ID. We can also make some cross filters. For example, for defects, we can set up the state to migrate only the defects that have the status open, and also have the target release, the release with ID 1001, and so on. So they are very customizable, and you can set up many filters on this. So now let's make a migration again. And for this, I will create another workspace. Let's create a demo migration. Okay, and I will add this workspace and try to synchronize only some defects for this workspace. Okay, so it was created, and also this is a recommended and a best practice when using the migration tool, to try to not synchronize, not migrate multiple times into the same workspace, unless you are using resume mode. And even if you're using resume mode, try not to run resume mode more than 5 or 10 times, because then a lot of things can be duplicated, and there can be conflicts, and you won't have the desired result. Okay, so if the space allows you, then try and create workspaces for each fresh new migration that you're trying to make. because again, it's not a synchronization tool, it's just a migration tool, and it will migrate, is designed to be used only once in the actual data hub. Okay, so let's go and add this workspace to our API access. Here, we created, we also have demo migration, the first workspace, and we should add also the one that we already created. Okay, we should save this one in Octane. Okay, go back and let's enter the workspace and let's check for the ID. You can see here that the space ID is 1002 and the workspace ID is 2002. Okay, so let's go ahead here back in the configuration file and change that. We should change the workspace ID. Okay, and everything else looks good. It should be the same as it was for the previous run. Okay, so we should save it. Okay, we have to create it here. And let's open that. Okay, but first we need to set up the filters, and let's set up the filters in this notepad because it will be much more easier. Okay, so we should copy those here. Okay, so I want to migrate only a specific set of defects. Okay, so all of the other entities, I want to not migrate any of them. So in that case, I will leave the requirement folder query as none, the requirement document query as none, the test query none, the set query none, and also the test run query none. And I will make changes only to the defect query. Okay, and for example, I want to migrate all of the defects from LMQC that have the ID. Let's check. I think it's, let's put bigger than 90. I think it should be enough, bigger than 90. Okay, and let's check that. Go back here. Okay, we should take this one, make the ID bigger than 90. Okay, so now let's copy this one. Okay, and let's post it here. Okay, so I think we should have in the end the migration of 8 defects, because 90 will not be included, because for 90 to be included we can put a sign bigger and equal. Let's just leave it like this for now. Okay, and let's also run it in preview mode and let's check the migration. Okay, so it seems like it's not starting in this way. Let's make some changes. That probably the filter is not correct, and let's add the quotes and also okay, and let's try it. Yep. Okay, so now it has started. Okay, so we started, and let's check if the migration will be done. Actually, I started it now without the preview mode. Okay, so we can see that it's analyzing the customization only for defects. So only the BG underscore field of the QC project. So no other, not the requirements fields, not the test fields, and so on. Only the defect ones. Okay, now it's creating the UDFs. Okay, so this will also take some time, so we'll skip it to the end. Okay, so now we can see that the migration has finished, and it only migrated. If we look at the report, we can see only a total of 8 defects in scope of migration, and all of them were migrated with no failures. So if you check above in the log here, we can see that only 8 of them were taken into consideration, as well as the customization related to the defects only. Okay, and now to validate this, let's go inside this workspace. Okay, and if we go to issues, we should be able to see only 8 defects created. Yes, so we can see only those 8 defects migrated. Okay, so basically this is how filter works. And also the migration tool has the capability to pause the migration at different stages in the running. So for example, if we open the user guide, we can see here that running the migration in the continuation of the main command, we can also put pause at start, for example, and it will only verify the connectivity. We can pause at migrate artifacts, for example, and this means that it will migrate only the customization of the project, including releases, fields and lists, and the actual entities want to be migrated, and so on. All of those are documented in the user guide.